The warning beacon on Marcus Flynn's console had been blinking for the past 20 minutes, indicating an incoming vessel. He stared at it with a mixture of confusion and irritation, his calloused fingers pausing over the maintenance schematic he'd been studying. In 3 years of manning the outpost Meridian alone, he'd never had a single visitor doubt the mining colony sat on the edge of the Helix Nebula, so far from civilized space that supply drops came only twice a year. Marcus preferred it that way. Out here, surrounded by red dust and silence, nobody asked questions about his past or why a man with his engineering credentials would choose complete isolation. He set down his coffee, a bitter synthetic blend that barely qualified as the real thing, and pulled up the landing protocols. The ship's signature was unfamiliar, sleek and expensive-looking compared to the utilitarian cargo haulers he occasionally saw on his long-range sensors. Definitely not a supply run. Marcus ran a hand through his dark, disheveled hair and grabbed his worn jacket. The temperature on the surface had dropped overnight, and the heating system in the landing bay was temperamental at best. He'd been meaning to fix it for months, but kept finding other projects to occupy his time. When you lived alone, maintenance schedules became more suggestion than requirement. The airlock cycled with a hiss, and Marcus stepped onto the landing platform just as the sleek vessel touched down. Its hull bore markings he recognized from interstellar news broadcasts, Asteran diplomatic insignia. His brow furrowed. What would the Asteran government want with a forgotten mining outpost? The ship's hatch opened with mechanical precision, and a figure emerged. Marcus felt his breath catch despite himself. She was stunning in a way that made his human frame of reference seem inadequate. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting between shades of violet and deep indigo, depending on how the light struck her. Intricate silver patterns traced along her exposed arms and throat, resembling neither tattoos nor scars, but something organic to her physiology. Her eyes were large and luminous, colored like distant nebulous swirls of purple and silver that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. She wore a form-fitting suit of dark material that absorbed light, making her seem to shimmer at the edges. Her hair, if it could be called that, moved with its own subtle current, darker purple tendrils that floated around her face as though underwater. 2 armored guards flanked her, their expressions hidden behind helmets. One carried a sleek case that looked ominously official. Marcus straightened, suddenly very aware of his oil-stained work clothes and the fact that he hadn't shaved in a week. "Can I help you?" The woman's gaze swept over him, her expression unreadable, but somehow conveying profound displeasure. When she spoke, her voice had a melodic quality that seemed at odds with her obvious distaste. "You are Marcus Flynn?" "That's me." He crossed his arms. "And you are?" "Sienna Vane." She said the name as though it should mean something. When Marcus's expression remained blank, she continued with barely concealed irritation. "Of the high houses of Astera. I am to understand this is your outpost?" "It is." Marcus glanced at the guards. Nice escort. Little overkill for a social visit, isn't it? One of the guards stepped forward, activating a holographic display from the case. A stern-faced Asteran official appeared, his voice flat and bureaucratic. "By decree of the Interstellar Justice Council, Sienna Vane, formerly of House Vane, has been found complicit in matters of political malfeasance. Her sentence, as per Asteran cultural requirements for high-born offenders, is exile with binding." Marcus blinked. "Binding?" "She is to be placed under the supervision of a single human male for a period of no less than 1 standard year," the hologram continued. "During this time, she will be stripped of her titles, assets, and political protections. You, Marcus Flynn, have been selected as her designated supervisor." "What?" Marcus and Sienna spoke simultaneously, though her tone carried far more outrage. "This is a mistake," Sienna insisted, whirling on the guards. "I was told I would be sent to a cultural center, Perhaps a diplomatic posting. Not some. She gestured at the dusty industrial outpost with undisguised horror. Some primitive wasteland with a single human mechanic. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Thanks for that. The hologram ignored their protests. All terms have been agreed upon by the relevant authorities. Refusal to comply will result in immediate transfer to a maximum security detention facility. The choice is yours, Sienna Vane. Sienna's luminous eyes widened, and Marcus caught a flash of genuine fear before she masked it with cold fury. She looked at the barren landscape, the industrial outpost, and finally at Marcus with an expression that made him feel like something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. Fine, she bid out. The guards wasted no time. They deposited 3 sleek cases on the platform, presumably Sienna's belongings, and retreated to their ship. Within minutes, the vessel was lifting off, leaving Marcus and Sienna alone in the swirling red dust dot and uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Sienna stood rigid, her arms crossed, refusing to look at him. Marcus sighed, grabbing the nearest case. "Well, this is awkward," he muttered. "Come on, then. I'll show you to your quarters." "My quarters?" Sienna's voice dripped with skepticism. "Yeah, a room with a bed and stuff. Unless you prefer to sleep on the landing platform." She finally turned to face him fully, her ethereal features arranged in an expression of pure disdain. "I suppose I have no choice. None of us do, apparently." Marcus started toward the airlock, case in hand. "Welcome to Outpost Meridian. Try not to look too thrilled." Sienna followed at a distance, her movements graceful despite her obvious reluctance. Marcus led her through the cramped corridors of the outpost, very aware of how industrial and utilitarian everything must seem to someone from high. As they're in society, his living quarters occupied the central hub, a collection of functional rooms, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. The main area served as kitchen, workspace, and common room. 3 doors led to a small bedroom, a bathroom with a water recycling shower, and a storage room he'd converted into a makeshift gym. "This is it," Marcus said, setting down her case. He gestured to the storage room door. "I cleared out the gym. There's a cot in there now, some storage space. Not exactly luxury, but it's private." Sienna surveyed the space with the expression of someone examining a particularly unpleasant insect specimen. "Where are the environmental controls, the sonic cleansers, the meal synthesizers? We've got a shower with actual water, a hot plate, and a food storage unit." Marcus pointed to each in turn. "Pretty advanced stuff. This is barbaric. This is practical." Marcus moved to the small kitchen area, filling a kettle with water. "Look, I didn't ask for this either, but we're stuck with each other for a year, so we might as well make the best of it." Sienna's eyes flashed. "The best of it? I have been. Torn from my home, stripped of my status, and exiled to the edge of nowhere with a human who lives like a scavenger. There is no best to be made of this situation." Marcus felt his temper flare. He'd been minding his own business, living peacefully in his chosen isolation, and now some alien aristocrat was insulting his home. "You know what? You're right. This place isn't a palace. I'm not a diplomat or a nobleman or whatever you're used to. But I keep this outpost running single-handedly. I maintain life support for the entire sector, and I do it without complaining about how primitive everything is." He set the kettle down harder than necessary. "You want to spend the next year being miserable? Fine, but don't expect me to apologize for not meeting your standards. I didn't sentence you here. I'm just the poor bastard who got volunteered to babysit." Sienna stared at him, her luminous eyes wide. For a moment, Marcus thought she might actually strike him. Then, unexpectedly, her shoulders sagged slightly. The rigid fury in her posture gave way to something more complex: exhaustion, perhaps, or resignation. "You are correct," she said quietly. "This is not your fault." I should not direct my anger at you. She looked around the sparse quarters again, and Marcus caught a glimpse of vulnerability beneath her proud exterior. I simply never imagined my life would come to this. The admission softened Marcus's anger. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I know this isn't what you wanted. It's not what I wanted either, but we're here now. So how about we start over? He extended his hand in the traditional human greeting. Marcus Flynn, engineer, hermit, and apparently your reluctant host for the next year. Sienna regarded his hand with uncertainty before carefully placing her own in it. Her skin was surprisingly warm, the silver patterns seeming to pulse faintly at the contact. Sienna Vane, formerly of House Vane, currently. She paused, her expression bitter. Currently nothing. Currently my guest, Marcus corrected. He released her hand and turned back to the kettle, which had begun to whistle. Tea? I do not know what that is. Then you're in for a treat. Or possibly a disappointment. Synthetic tea is hit or miss. He poured 2 cups of the steaming liquid, handing one to Sienna. Fair warning, everything here is going to be pretty basic compared to what you're used to. Sienna accepted the cup gingerly, studying the amber liquid with suspicion. She took a tentative sip, her face contorting in an expression that clearly said disappointment won out over treat. Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. Yeah, it's an acquired taste, if you say so. She set the cup down carefully. Marcus Flynn, I should inform you that I have no intention of being ... compliant. Will not pretend to be grateful for this situation or attempt to make myself agreeable. Noted. I will find a way to clear my name and return to Asthera. This exile is temporary. Good for you. His calm responses seemed to frustrate her more than argument would have. Sienna's eyes narrowed. You are not what I expected. Yeah? What did you expect? Someone cruder, more ... aggressive. Humans are said to be primitive and brutish. Marcus leaned against the counter, regarding her with amusement. And you're not what I expected either. I figured alien nobility would be more diplomatic, less openly hostile. For the first time, the corner of Sienna's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Perhaps we are both full of surprises. Perhaps. Marcus raised his cup in a mock toast. To unexpected circumstances and unwanted roommates. Sienna hesitated, then lifted her own cup. To survival. Their cups clinked together, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully constructed isolation was about to be thoroughly disrupted. As Sienna retreated to her makeshift room, leaving him alone with his now cold tea, he wondered which of them would find the next year more challenging. The first morning of cohabitation began with a crisis. Marcus woke to the sound of angry beeping emanating from the bathroom, followed by what he could only describe as creative cursing in a language he didn't understand. He rolled out of bed, pulling on a shirt as he stumbled toward the commotion. Everything okay in there? He called through the door. The door slid open to reveal Sienna. Her iridescent skin flushed a darker shade of purple, her floating hair tendrils whipping around her face in agitation. She was wrapped in a towel, water dripping onto the floor, and she looked absolutely furious. Your bathing chamber is malfunctioning, she announced. The water temperature fluctuates wildly, the pressure is inconsistent, and there is no sonic drawing function whatsoever. Marcus rubbed his eyes, trying not to notice how the towel clung to her curves, or how the water made her silver patterns gleam. That's not a malfunction. That's just how it works. The water heater is old, and we don't have sonic dryers out here. How do you people function in such conditions? We use things called towels. He gestured to the one she was clutching. You're already halfway there. Sienna's eyes flashed dangerously, and Marcus realized he was treading on thin ice. He raised his hands in surrender. Look, I know it's different from what you're used to. The heating coil probably needs adjusting. I'll take a look at it after breakfast. Breakfast, she repeated, the word heavy with skepticism. I suppose that will be equally primitive? Absolutely. Marcus headed to the kitchen area, pulling out supplies. Hope you like protein bars and synthetic eggs. He heard her sharp intake of breath behind him, but ignored it, focusing instead on preparing their meal. Cooking was one of the few domestic skills he'd maintained during his years of isolation. It gave him something to do with his hands, a way to pass the time between maintenance shifts. Sienna emerged a few minutes later, dressed in a simple but elegant outfit that somehow made his functional living space look even more drab by comparison. She sat stiffly at the small table, watching him work with obvious distrust. On Asthera, we have molecular synthesizers that can create any meal in seconds, she said. Perfectly balanced nutrients, customized to individual physiology. Sounds sterile. Marcus cracked eggs into a heated pan, the sizzle filling the small space. There's something satisfying about making food with your own hands. Makes it taste better. I doubt that very much. He plated the eggs along with heated protein bars and set them in front of her. Sienna stared at her plate as though it might attack her. Marcus sat across from her, digging into his own food. You don't have to eat it, he said between bites. But you should probably put something in your stomach. Long day ahead. Doing what, exactly? Well, I've got to run diagnostics on the Eastern Solar Array, recalibrate the atmospheric processors, and check the water filtration system. You're welcome to come along or stay here. Up to you. Sienna picked up her fork after Marcus showed her how to hold it and cautiously tried the eggs. Her expression shifted from suspicion to surprise. This is not terrible. High praise, Marcus said with a grin. I'll try not to let it go to my head. Despite her initial reluctance, Sienna decided to accompany him on his rounds. Marcus suspected it was less about interest in his work and more about not wanting to be left alone in the unfamiliar quarters. He didn't mind. Having someone to talk to, even someone as prickly as Sienna, was a change from his usual solitary routine. The outpost was a sprawling collection of interconnected modules and external structures, all designed to withstand the harsh environment of the planet's surface. Marcus led Sienna through the maze of corridors, pointing out various systems and explaining their functions. This is the main life support hub, he said, gesturing to a room filled with humming machinery. Keeps the air breathable, the temperature stable, and filters out the toxic particles from the atmosphere. Sienna studied the equipment with what appeared to be genuine interest. And you maintain all of this yourself? For 3 years now, yeah. Marcus pulled up a diagnostic screen, scrolling through the readouts. It's not as complicated as it looks once you understand the systems. Everything's interconnected: atmospheric, water, power, thermal. You fix one thing, you have to make sure it doesn't throw something else off balance. That sounds complex. It keeps me busy. He made a few adjustments to the filtration settings. What did you do back on Asthera? Before all this, I mean. Sienna's expression clouded. I managed House Vane's political affairs. Attended councils, negotiated alliances, maintained our family's standing among the high houses. It was a life of endless social maneuvering and calculated appearances. Sounds exhausting. It was. She seemed surprised by her own admission. But it was also all I knew. I was trained from childhood to fulfill that role, to be the perfect representative of my house. Marcus glanced at her as he worked. And your husband? The one they said you were involved in killing? Her silver-swirled eyes hardened. Taven was my husband in name only. Our marriage was arranged to unite two powerful houses. He was twice my age and more interested in his political machinations than in me. Did you do it? Marcus asked bluntly. Kill him, I mean. No. The word came out flat and certain. But I am not surprised they believed I did. I made enemies in the High Court, people who saw me as a threat. When Tavern died of what appeared to be poisoning, they seized the opportunity to eliminate me. Marcus finished his adjustments and turned to face her fully. I believe you. Sienna blinked, clearly taken aback. Why? Because you're angry, not guilty. There's a difference. He closed the diagnostic panel. Plus, if you were going to murder someone, I doubt you'd be dumb enough to get caught. Despite herself, Sienna's lips curved into a slight smile. That is perhaps the strangest compliment I have ever received. I'm full of those. Marcus headed for the exit. Come on, solar array next. It's outside, so you'll get to see the scenic view. The airlock led to an observation deck that overlooked the mining colony's main operations. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, in equal measure red dust plains stretching to the horizon. Jagged rock formations jutting skyward, and above it all, a sky streaked with colors that had no names in human language. Sienna stepped out onto the deck, and Marcus watched as her expression transformed. The anger and disdain that had been her constant mask since arriving melted into something like wonder. It's beautiful, she breathed. Yeah, Marcus agreed, though he found himself looking at her rather than the landscape. It grows on you. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus led her to the solar array access point. As he worked, Sienna asked questions tentative at first, then with growing curiosity. She wanted to know how the panels converted light to energy, why certain materials were chosen over others, how he had learned to maintain such complex systems. Marcus found himself enjoying the conversation. Sienna was sharp, grasping concepts quickly and making connections he wouldn't have expected from someone with no technical background. You're good at this, he said as she correctly identified a faulty connection, before he pointed it out. I am good at many things, she replied, but there was less arrogance in her tone than before. Though most of them are useless here. I wouldn't say that. Intelligence is intelligence, whether you're negotiating political treaties or fixing solar panels. Marcus sealed the panel and stood, brushing red dust from his pants. You just need to apply it differently. Over the following days, a routine developed. Marcus would wake early and prepare breakfast simple meals that Sienna gradually stopped complaining about. They would make their rounds of the outpost together, with Sienna observing and occasionally helping with repairs. Evenings were spent in the common area, Marcus working on personal projects while Sienna read from a digital archive he'd offered her. But it was the small moments that began to shift something between them. The way Marcus would automatically make Sienna tea in the evening, remembering exactly how much honey she preferred to mask the synthetic taste. How Sienna started organizing his tools without being asked, creating a system that actually made more sense than his haphazard arrangement. The brief touches when passing equipment or sitting close together while reviewing schematics. One evening, about 2 weeks into her stay, Marcus found Sienna staring out the observation window, her luminous eyes reflecting the alien sunset. She looked lost and lonely, in a way that tugged at something in his chest. Homesick? He asked, coming to stand beside her. I do not know, she admitted quietly. I thought I would be. But Aethra feels distant now, like a life someone else lived. I get that. Marcus leaned against the window frame. When I first came here, I spent months thinking about Earth, everything I'd left behind, the career I'd thrown away. But eventually, this place became home. The silence, the simplicity. It gave me space to figure out who I was without all the noise. Sienna turned to look at him. Why did you come here, Marcus? What did you run from? He was quiet for a long moment, debating how much to share. I was engaged, he finally said. Her name was Jessica. We had this whole life planned out house in the city. Corporate jobs, the works. Then I took a contract position out on the frontier, and while I was gone, she decided that life was too uncertain. She wanted stability, and I wanted adventure. So she married my business partner instead. That must have been painful. It was. Marcus shrugged. But looking back, we wanted different things. I thought I could be happy with that conventional life, but I was lying to myself. Coming out here, choosing isolation, it was easier than facing that I didn't fit into the world I was supposed to want. And now I know myself better. I like the quiet, the independence. I like fixing things, solving problems that don't involve office politics or social expectations. He met her eyes, though I'm starting to think maybe total isolation has its downsides. Something electric passed between them, a charge in the air that made Marcus's pulse quicken. Sienna's patterns seemed to glow slightly brighter, and he remembered reading somewhere that Azteran physiology responded to emotional states. Your patterns, he said softly. They're beautiful when they do that. Sienna's breath caught. You should not say such things. Why not? Because we are not. This is not. She struggled for words. I am your prisoner, essentially. This arrangement is not by choice. Isn't it, though? Marcus turned to face her fully. You could request a transfer, appeal to the council. You stay here because it's better than the alternative, but you still choose to stay. And I choose to make the best of it, to get to know you instead of treating you like an obligation. Marcus ... His name on her lips sounded different, softer. I'm not saying anything has to happen, he continued. I'm just saying, I like having you here. You're prickly and judgmental, and you insult my cooking. But you're also brilliant and funny when you let yourself be, and you make this place feel less empty. Sienna's luminous eyes searched his face. On Aztara, emotions are considered weaknesses. We are taught to control them, to never let them show. And what do you feel right now? She stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could see the intricate details of her silver patterns, the way they swirled and pulsed with her heartbeat. Confused, she whispered. Frightened. But also, alive in a way I have not felt in years. Marcus reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked one of her floating tendrils behind her ear. Me too. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Sienna leaned forward, closing the distance, and pressed her lips to his dot. The kiss was tentative at first, exploratory. Her lips were softer than Marcus expected, warmer, and they tasted faintly of the honey tea she'd been drinking. When she didn't pull away, he deepened the kiss, one hand moving to the small of her back while the other cupped her face. Sienna made a sound surprise or pleasure. He couldn't tell, and her arms wound around his neck. Her patterns blazed brighter, and Marcus felt warmth radiating from her skin, as though her entire body was responding to the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sienna looked dazed. That was ... double quotes. Yeah, Marcus agreed, his voice rough. We should not do this. But even as she said it, she made no move to step away. Probably not, Marcus conceded. But I'm not sorry. Sienna's expression cycled through several emotions before settling on something that looked like determination. Neither am I. She kissed him again, harder this time, and Marcus pulled her closer, losing himself in the warmth of her, the alien beauty of her, the rightness of having her in his arms. When they finally pulled apart for the second time, both of them were smiling genuine, unguarded smiles that transformed both their faces. This complicates things, Sienna said, though she didn't sound particularly concerned. Life's complicated anyway. Marcus traced one of her glowing patterns with his finger, fascinated by the way it pulsed under his touch. Might as well enjoy the good parts. They stayed there by the window, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Neither spoke about what this meant or where it could lead. For now, it was enough to simply be together, two exiles finding unexpected solace in each other's company. Marcus had come to this desolate outpost seeking isolation, running from a life that didn't fit. Sienna had been sent here as punishment, stripped of everything she'd known. Yet somehow, in the vast emptiness of space, they'd found something neither expected: connection, understanding, and the first stirrings of something that felt dangerously close to love. As the last light faded from the sky and the twin moons began their rise, Marcus knew that his carefully maintained solitude was truly over. And for the first time in 3 years, he was glad.